You're watching Reality Check, This Week in Rewind. Welcome to Reality Check, This Week in Rewind. I'm your host, Quinny B, and it is yet another week of exciting social media drama. So are you ready? Let's just hop right into it and get started. So I don't know if you've heard about what's going on with Miss Porsha Williams and Mr. Dennis McKinley, but over the weekend, she was at a ATL business expo, some type of expo. And so, of course, she has her go naked hair. Now, it is said that she was filming for Real Housewives of Atlanta. So there are pictures with her and Kenya Moore and some fans. Now, the one thing that I want to point out, though, with Porsha in this photo is that her ring finger is a little light, okay? That big old rock that Mr. McKinley proposed to her with is MIA. Now, my first thought was maybe she's not wearing it because she's out in public, security reasons. She doesn't want to lose it. She's moving around a lot, but I'm not sold. Porsha has not been seen without that ring, period. And so for her to be out with this little baby band, I think speaks volumes, okay? So last week we touched on them saying that that Mr. Dennis McKinley was a cokehead. He was into bestiality. This week now they're saying that he has a sugar baby, okay? A Canadian escort, a sugar baby that he met while Porsha was pregnant. Now, I don't know what to believe, and what I would hope is that regardless of what's true and what's not, that Porsha is strong enough to not just marry anybody. So what's being said is that Dennis is an absolute con artist and he's just been shuffling money around, and that he's not loyal, and that he and this Canadian escort have matching tattoos of a black widow spider. I hope that it's not true, but listen, you can do a quick Google search and I guarantee you several videos will come up with the details on this. I'm not going to slander them. I hope that this isn't true, but all I know is that I feel as though Porsha wanted her baby and that's what she got, right? We watched her on the previous seasons of Real Housewives talk about baby numps and, just wanting to be a mother. And so I hope that at the end of the day, she's happy, okay? Because all she's posting about is being happy and PJ being the love of her life, and Mr. McKinley is posting about Porsha and PJ being fine, that they strong over there and that he has a lawyer. And I don't know how you're going to lawyer up when text messages are out, the receipts are here, and beyond that, when you sign up for reality TV, you sign up for your life to be on display. So I don't know how he's going to combat that, but I just hope that at the end of the day, Porsha and baby PJ are okay. In other news, Porsha is also now debt free. I think she owed about $240K to Uncle Sam, and she has worked her way out of that. So you go, girl. Now, while she has been working her way out of the debt, another returning housewife now has $150,000 tax lien on her home. And I'm talking about Miss Kenya Moore. So maybe that's why she's returning to Real Housewives. Who knows? I did take some time to watch the Growing Up Hip Hop Atlanta trailer. And so we know, of course, Bow Wow is on there, but they are still dragging out this Kiyomi thing. So there's a 911 call that's going to be aired. And frankly, I'm tired of it, right? We saw this last season. This is old news. They have no business being together. They are toxic for one another. One thing that did perplex me is that Waka and Tammy seem to have a more prominent role in this season. And I know that Tammy has said in the past that reality TV was just not for them. But I also know that at one point they were working on their own reality TV show with BET called Meet the Flockers. So maybe they're hoping that participating in Growing Up Hip Hop Atlanta will be a segue into that yet again. Now, a major question that I did have is, what is Andrea Kelly and her family doing on here? They are not hip hop. They did not grow up hip hop. And I feel like it's an exploitation of this R. Kelly thing yet again. She was on another VH1 show, and here she is on this one. I'm just not really sure what her contributions are really going to be. I also took some time to watch the Basketball Wives season trailer, and I just want to say this. I am not impressed. What I want to know is why Evelyn is back jumping up on tables and making a complete fool of herself. I thought per Iyanla, she was beyond that. She wasn't going to let anyone take her back to that place and bring her out of her character. Another question is, Tammy Roman's back? I thought she had left. I thought she didn't have time for this. I thought she was just beyond that. But hey girl, come on back and get that check. And speaking of Tammy Roman, her and her boyfriend Reggie secretly wed last year in Las Vegas. Congratulations. And speaking of married, Carly Redd posted a photo on her Instagram of wedding bands and rings that she and Arkansas Mo have gotten married. I did go to his Instagram and I saw that he's been wearing that ring for quite a while. So does that mean that everything that we've been seeing is purely for a storyline? But either way, congratulations, Carly and Arkansas Mo. I also wanted to provide a quick update because shortly after I released this video, Peter Gunz came back and said, well, his 19-year-old girlfriend is not pregnant. And while we're on the Love and Hip Hop train, let's go ahead and talk about Miss Tommy Lee. Now, I do miss seeing her on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, but she was also just a train wreck. So the last time you heard, she was facing up to 54 years of jail time for child abuse. She had gone to her daughter's school and allegedly slammed her daughter's head up against the locker and dragged her by her hair down the hall. So somehow she managed to avoid that, but she is now on probation for 10 years. Do you want to know what the probationary guidelines are? One of them is that she can't be around or in any place where there are drugs and alcohol involved. So that means no hosting gigs for her. She also has to succumb to random drug tests, alcohol and drug tests, be in the house by 11 p.m., which also means no hosting. She's also in like a halfway house or under a psychiatrist's care, which I think is super important. She needs that. And they said that she actually requested that. So kudos to you, Tommy. The crazy thing to me is that basically she has to make sure to stay out of trouble for the next 10 years. Ooh, good luck with that girl. Point blank period. She has to be on the straight and narrow. And last but not least, Hazel E recently did a performance. Now, everybody was talking about her inability to rap or whatever she does. And I'll just be honest, I couldn't even get past her booty. It was terrible. She's always talking about, you know, how she got money now, all this money that she done paid. She got the body that she wants and all this other type of stuff. And all I can say is clearly Photoshop works wonders, because what I'm seeing on the video of her performing and what she posts on her Instagram are two completely different things, girl. Do better. This week on Braxton Family Values is pretty much dedicated to Tamar's birthday trip to wine country. All of the ladies have brought their spouses. They have this very nice home, or whatever you want to call it, this Airbnb while they're out there, and it should just be a great time. However, Tamar is the last to arrive, and her first complaint is that she's gotten the smallest room. Now, one thing that I do like about David is that he seems to level her out. His point of view is, babe, we're here, let's just have a good time, and I'm happy to be here with you. Now, of course, we know Tamar, a true diva, is not having that. She makes it known and pops into everybody's room and asks, it's my birthday trip. How could you not think about the birthday girl? And I want to know, is she overreacting? I mean, I feel as though if it was that serious, then maybe she should have already had rooms already picked out, or because you can't leave it to other people to automatically consider you, because that's just not how that works. Let me back up for a second, because I did want to touch on one thing. Before they go to Napa Valley, Tawanda meets Sean in the studio, and she has him autograph the first Braxton's, well, the first and really the only Braxton's CD. And they talk about why Tracy couldn't be a part of the project, which was because she got pregnant. And during that time, you just could not be a pregnant R&B or a pop star, which I think that this part is very important because it emphasizes this exclusion that Tracy is always talking about. She doesn't feel accepted. She doesn't feel included. And I think a lot of it stems here. This is the beginning. And I don't really know how to advise Tracy to get through that, but I still think that they don't talk about it enough as sisters. They've addressed it in previous seasons and they've kind of like apologized and brushed over it. However, clearly it still bothers Tracy, and maybe she just needs to go to solo counseling. But I think that that is the root of a lot of Tracy's issues, not only with Tamar, but with the sisters as a whole. Another thing that happens during this episode that I'm not going to harp on because I just want to go ahead and cover it and get it out of the way is that Tony shows up stag. Birdman is nowhere in tow. There's no real excuse or reason as to why he can't make it. And when they talk about how their relationships started, Tony just doesn't remember a damn thing. It really fuels the feeling that all of this is for TV, that all of this is fake. And then Tony also shows up and mentions that she's allergic to the sun, which someone else explained is not that she's allergic to the sun, but that she has lupus. And so being in direct light for extended periods of time can cause her to flare up, or it can just drain her of her energy, which is why when she goes on these sister trips or these family trips, she's in her room a lot, she's resting a lot. It's because of the lupus, which makes a lot of sense. But I did want to back up and discuss those two parts. Now, back to the recap. Their first night in wine country, they have a chef prepare a meal for them. This entire time, Tawanda isn't drinking, which is fueling these whole pregnancy rumors, which are just not that you can't have a child at 40 plus. I just don't think that any of the Braxton sisters, with this newfound celebrity, and especially with Tawanda having the body that she has, are actually open to having a baby at 40 plus. But the most important thing that's divulged at this dinner is that David says that he didn't know that Tamar was black when he met her. She had long, blonde, luxurious locks, and he just had no idea that she was black. Everyone at the table is perplexed, and I'm not even there, but I am equally confused. Tamar is blackety black. But I did want to point out that Tamar does have a tendency to attract black men that don't particularly or traditionally date black women, right? Wasn't that her thing with Vince? She wore the blonde hair because she was insecure about Vince's attraction to white women. Tamar says, or she's tweeted about this, that she was just trying to protect David's image while they were filming because he was shooting dice. He was being taught how to shoot dice. And she just wanted to protect his image because at the end of the day, he is a businessman. But I personally feel as though she may have been overreacting. It really just seemed like guys bonding and just they go to another dinner after going on this tour in wine country. And the Braxton sisters have a tradition where you bring the cake out, and instead of slicing the cake, you grab it and put your hands in it. Now, because Toni just kind of touched it and didn't put her hands in it, as Toni later explains in her confessional that she had been coughing in her hand, Tamar says, well, this was just ugly, and this was one of the worst birthdays that I've ever had, which I just think is a complete over-exaggeration. This is because they've catered to Tamar her entire life. She's monster. She's the baby. And so when you've been babied like this, then you get to think that behavior like this is okay. She didn't appreciate Kevin saying and happy birthday to Tamar and Tracy, which I just thought was super petty because their birthdays are like 2 or 3 weeks apart. And I guess Tracy feels as though her birthday is an afterthought and is never celebrated. And I just thought it was really ugly. At that dinner, Tamar was shown in a very nasty light. Her sisters and everybody came together. They bought her like sunglasses and maybe a couple of other things. And she went, well, I got one gift. And so I know that there's more to come. Tamar is almost 40. Okay, and at this point, if I'm coming to Napa Valley to celebrate your birthday, honey boo, my presence is a present. I don't owe you anything. It's not a good look for her. On to Little Women Atlanta, which we know is now one of my favorite shows. This episode, okay, Juicy and Bree meet up to discuss her solo career, which I am super excited about, only because Emily has been so difficult to work with this season. And we also find out that while Bree and Juicy are working out, Juicy is down 50 pounds, honey, but she still got the juice. The twins are planning for this double wedding, which we soon find out because this episode also focuses on the double wedding with the twins. As Amanda kept saying, are you sure that you're ready to marry Chris? And she keeps going, yes, I'm ready. But we know at this point that Chris has cheated on Andrea in the past, which is why she's so insecure about him working out of town. We later find out or get to see in this episode that the double wedding is off. Andrea and Chris are out. Do you think they can get it together though? Do you think that this is premature? Juicy and Bree meet at the park to talk business so that they can discuss Bree's solo future. Okay, and I'm super excited, but what I heard in the studio did not excite me. One thing that I wish that Little Women Atlanta would do, that the producers would do, is actually just play us maybe a 30-second excerpt of the completed song, because what I heard in the studio I didn't like. So I would love to know what the final project actually sounded like. On to this double wedding, okay? Amanda wants to do a sexy dance for Jordan, and she has Minnie come and step in to play Jordan during this choreography lesson that she's given. Andrea is just so confident, okay? She is looking back at it. She is popping that thing, okay? And she ain't like, Minnie did like it a little bit, and it was funny because Minnie said, she scares me. It's because she's a tiger. You can see it. She's bossy. She owns it. She knows she got a little fatty back there. She know her man like it. Go girl, I love it. I hope they film the wedding too, because I want to see it. Juicy and Minnie meet up with GC from Street Execs to give him an update on what their artists are actually doing. And so Juicy is actually able to successfully sell the idea of Bree as a solo artist. GC likes what he's hearing, especially about the twins and the Cheeks coming together to make a track. And he says, you know what? Maybe we can actually take more than one artist on the road for this project, which is great. But I want him to revive the LP album with the Cheeks and the twins kissing and making up. And if Emily's in a better mood, if we can keep her attitude consistent, then she and Abira can work together. And then that means our LP project is back on. What are we waiting for? One thing that I really thought was cute was when Bumpman asked Abira out on a date and then they met at the Atlanta Fish Market. She was a little overdressed, but I appreciate how she came prepared with questions. She asked, did he have kids? Has he ever dated another little person, which happened to be a first for both of them? He divulged that he didn't have any kids, but that she has 4. I think that's a lot of responsibility for a person to come in to go from not having any kids to having 4. That's major. But they are so cute together, and I could just feel the chemistry through the screen. So I really want to see where this goes. In this episode, a great thing that we get to see is the twins bond, because Andrea is just flipping out over Chris talking about he has to go out of town for work, and we get to see her cancel the engagement, which is thus canceling the double wedding. Amanda does a great job of staying calm and supportive and just loving her, but she makes a good point. This is why I asked you, because you guys are rocky, you have history, your past isn't completely in the past. This is why I had these questions. She manages to be a supportive sister. Now, I personally think Andrea and Chris need to go to counseling because their communication is terrible. I definitely think that the love is there. I definitely think that they can work through it, but they need to be taught how to communicate with one another. But overall, this was a good episode. I want to see where Bumpman and Abira go. Another thing was Minnie is the maid of honor, we find out in this episode, but the preview shows where she's been stripped of her duty or of her title even. How did we get here? What did she do? I guess we'll have to wait till the next episode to see, huh? But that's all I got for Little Women of Atlanta. Real Housewives of Potomac. We pick up right where we left off. Karen has walked out of the building because she is just frustrated. She feels attacked by Giselle. And honestly, I can't blame her. I understand her being just completely caught off guard. Candace goes behind her to talk to her, and Giselle further explains her point of view to the ladies. And I think that this is important because Giselle, as she's expressed before and as she's been tasked by her counselor, she lacks compassion. And so I think because she lacks compassion, she also lacks the ability to identify the appropriate times to tackle certain topics. And so Giselle gets an opportunity to kind of further explain her point of view, and it doesn't come off as malicious as the episode continues. Karen does later return to the table, and they kind of agree to let bygones be bygones as it pertains to this business situation, because they're never fully going to agree. They are businesswomen in their own right, and they just have 2 different points of views on what should be divulged to friends. Another very touching moment during this whole dinner is where Candace opens up and talks about her relationship with her mother. Her mother is a therapist, and so I think naturally her mother is manipulative without even realizing it or even intending to be manipulative. But in fact, she is. And so Candace talks about the strings that her mother pulls with her and the things that she says. And I think the ladies are able to provide great feedback, especially being that they're older. Some of them are still married, divorced. They know what it's like to even just have this experience with the in-laws. It's just very, very touching. And I think that Candace should really seek personal therapy to determine how to deal with her mother. One thing I struggle to understand is why Katie is even a friend of the show. Personally, I don't feel like she really offers much. She provided a little comedic relief during this scene, but girl, bye. I believe it's later on that night where Candace visits Giselle's and Katie's presidential suite. And somehow, once again, we end up talking about Ashley and her drinking habits. I really do think that this is payback for last season. Candace sounds a little uninformed about what it takes to actually get pregnant. Her whole defense on her judgment of Ashley is, if you're trying to have a baby, why are you drinking so much? I'm pretty sure several people can attest to having a baby or being impregnated on a drunken night. So I don't think drinking stops anything, which is something that Giselle mentions, but Candace sticks by what she says. You know, this is how she feels, and that just is what it is. The bulk of this episode is focused on Giselle's history. We actually get to meet her dad, and we get to see the plantation where her ancestors were slaves, or just whatever their history was. And so what I'll say is her dad has lived a very full life. Bravo shows photos of him with MLK Jr. and just his whole history and civil rights and being a politician. And I think it's great. However, during this tour, we also get to see where Giselle gets her shadiness from, because her dad makes a joke about Karen Huger's finances, which of course the Grand Dame did not find to be humorous at all. But overall, I enjoyed this episode. What I wish is that Bravo had been able to continue the positivity streak without going into some of the messiness that ensues later on during this episode. So the ladies complete this plantation tour. They decide, oh, it's time to celebrate. We're going to go out and experience New Orleans, you know, the stereotypical way. We're going to party. So that's what they do. And of course, they all get drunk. They have a good time. Robin misses the bus. She has to catch up with them and meet them later. Then they end up back at the presidential suite just chatting because they're drunk. They're not quite ready to end the night. And this is where Giselle, being messy, loose lips, whatever you want to call it, talks about the private conversation that she, Katie, and Candace had about Ashley's attempt to get pregnant. Ashley takes offense to it, and rightfully so, because you're discussing my own private and, well, not quite private because she shared it with everybody, but you're discussing my journey to motherhood with other people. And you also just sound ignorant and misinformed about it because you don't have to stop drinking to have a baby. However, Candace makes a great point that Ashley has taking all these other measures about going to see alternative medicine doctors and changing her diet and all of these other extreme things. And you keep saying, Ashley keeps saying how she's not supposed to be drinking because she's ready to have a baby. Yet we see her drinking. So I think that Candace is just calling Ashley on the carpet in a way that Ashley is just not prepared to deal with. Monique and the other ladies kind of reinforce what Ashley's saying, but Candace doesn't back down. She holds her own. All in all, I contributed to the alcohol. Jamie Foxx said, blame it on the alcohol. That's what I blame it on. Personally, I'm ready to move forward. I even think that this tidbit of drama could have been held for the next episode, just so that this episode had an overall positive feel. And one final thing that I overlooked during this episode is that Robin divulges that she did her DNA or the ancestry thing, and she learns that she is 59% European. And Katie feels vindicated because if you remember a couple of seasons ago, Katie was telling her that she was white or had some type of European in her blood. Robin was just like, absolutely not, I'm black. But Robin further explains the difference between she and Katie is that Katie comes from a biracial family, as in one parent is white, one parent is black. Whereas Robin comes from a household where two of the parents are black. It's just at some point in her genealogy, I mean, as I would say most of us do, her slave master was white, you know, or somewhere got a little mixed up in there. Katie feels vindicated, and these ladies also decide to explore this topic on social media. I still don't think that they really get anywhere with this, but Katie, whatever, girl. On to Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. Now, I could say that this episode was uneventful, but I'd be lying. All right. So we open right where we left off, and that is with this Pooh and Carly Red fight. Carly is still holding on to this, I have a daughter, and just say that we didn't have a threesome, just say that we didn't do it. That is the whole thing that Carly is upset about. But later on, Carly kind of tells on herself in this one-on-one where Rashida and Mimi get to witness, and that's probably the first time that I'm excited that Mimi's messy ass is anywhere. Because We need the proof. Back in Atlanta, we have to keep the storyline moving with this whole Scrap and Ciara Future romance thing going on. Akbar V has been invited to perform, and of course Hiram and Stevie have agreed to meet because they're always scouting new talent. For whatever reason, Akbar has decided to invite Ciara, and today of all days is one of the days that Ciara just doesn't know how to be a professional. When Akbar hops off the stage and she's ready to talk business, Ciara comes over and she's busting everything up. Okay, she's calling Stevie on the carpet for not coming to court for Scrap. She's talking to Hiram about his wife, Pooh, and Akbar is completely right in putting Ciara out and just telling her, you messy as hell. You're not being professional. I'm here to further my rap career, and you are single-handedly ruining it, girl. I agree with Akbar 110% here. Producers waste no time cutting back to what's happening over in Trinidad, which last episode we discovered that Kirk has given Jasmine his phone number because his daughter no longer wants to be the middle person, and rightfully so. Now, Kirk's storyline is that Jasmine just can't stop texting him because Kirk is just so desirable. She will not stop texting him. She's not texting him about Cannon. Also, that Rashida doesn't know, which I would say if this is actually the case, if Jasmine is actually texting Kirk, his first mistake was not letting Rashida know because they're supposed to be a unit. And hasn't he learned enough from moving in silence and in secrecy? I guess not. Mimi and Carly meet to discuss what's happened with Pooh and that whole debacle. And still for me, Mimi just is messy. You are sticking your nose in a place where it just does not need to be. And if this is really and truly about this threesome and denying it, then you just need to step out of it. You need to allow them to work through it. Like, how old are y'all? You're old. Older. Carly takes everyone over to her family's house so that they can meet and see where she came from, which is a really cool moment, but it's also pretty awkward because Jock and Kendra are there. And I don't know any woman that wants to be on vacation with her man, his ex, and now over at his ex's family's house. Carly's cousin doesn't make it any better by asking Jock all these questions. And then they also want to know, why are they meeting Jock instead of Arkansas Mo, which is a very valid question. However, I will give Kendra this. She handles it with class. She does not really engage once the conversation starts going to a place where it could go left. She just simply says, you know what? I'm going to go outside and talk to my man because this ain't it for me, and I appreciate that. Not starting drama and just being the woman that I'm sure Jock fell in love with to begin with. Mimi and Rashida decide to hang out with Pooh because, of course, she and Carly aren't on good terms, so you have to divide and conquer. Carly is actually out at the market with Bambi and Kendra, giving them a first-hand taste of Trinidadian cuisine. But it wouldn't be love and hip-hop if there wasn't some mess. So, of course, Mimi and Rashida have this bright idea to bring Pooh over to where they are at the market so that she and Carly can once again hash this out. Although they go to hash it out, really, nothing's resolved because Carly wants an apology for this threesome that never happened. And Pooh is just like, well, now, girl, if it's about telling your daughter what she needs to hear, I mean, I'll say that, but the threesome happened. And then Carly goes off on this tangent about her man not caring what she did and that being in the past. Very telling. Carly tells on herself. As a viewer, I in fact believe that Carly had a threesome with Pooh and her husband. I think that Carly is embarrassed because Pooh just wouldn't let it go. It really feels like a lover's quarrel. Mimi and Rashida should just exit stage left at this point. Thank you for bringing the tea, bringing the drama, helping Carly tell on herself, and you ladies just exit. Bambi and Scrap meet out for dinner, and of course Bambi's filling him in on all the drama. And what I think is odd is that Scrap is talking about he's ready to have another baby. And Breland is, I think, like right now, not even during the time of filming, I don't even think Breland is one right now. And it's like, well, what the hell is wrong with you? Of course, leave it to a man to say something like that because he don't have to carry it. He don't have to make the sacrifices. His body isn't changing and transforming. But Bambi, kudos to you, girl, because you put that shit in check ASAP. Now, what I couldn't figure out is during this dinner while Scrappy and Bambi are discussing his desire to have another child immediately, where Kendra's desire to not have children came into this. I felt like it's no one's business what Kendra and Jock want to do. Okay, Jock has a baseball team and a dugout full of kids. So if Kendra doesn't want to have one, it's her right. And furthermore, what she said specifically was that she did not want to be baby mama number whatever the number is. I think it's number 5. So it's not that she doesn't want to have children. It's that she wants to be married first. This becomes important when they go to the little concert, because as Jock is getting drunk and being disrespectful towards Kendra, he decides that this is the perfect opportunity to discuss her desire to not want to have kids because he's ready to propose, which these two topics are completely unrelated, and it's just shit that men do. They just deflect. Well, I was ready to marry you, but you out here telling people you don't want to have kids with me. What does that have to do with anything? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I appreciate Kendra for shutting that down and walking out, because she was probably on the cusp of embarrassing herself and coming up out of her character, because I felt it. I was there. I was like, no, he didn't. I know he didn't go there because he don't want it. Two completely unrelated topics, and just like a man, to deflect. Back in Atlanta, Stevie and Scrap finally meet for this overdue conversation where they can talk about somehow Tommy seeing Stevie's beefcake. And they can also talk about Ciara's behavior because, she mentioned him not showing up for Scrap while he was on trial or for early release. Something to that effect. Really, the only thing that we care about that comes out of this conversation is this suggestion to have a freedom party. Clearly, that's going to come up in the next episode or two. This episode, I really felt as though could be called the Pooh Show, because if I had taken a shot for every time I heard her name, I would have been so drunk during this episode. Carly, Shekinah, and Tokyo end up running into each other at the pool where they discuss what happened with Pooh. Carly's talking about how Pooh's attendance or her presence is just impacting her overall trip. And I, for one, can't understand. If I hadn't been home in as many years as Carly says she hadn't been home, nobody could take this joy from me, which is pretty much what her friends tell her. And so with that being said, now it's time to get ready for this major concert, which I guess means that Carly's going to disobey this 2 a.m. curfew that Arkansas Mo gave her. Looking at it, right, the concert didn't start until maybe midnight. Of course, this girl was not going to be in at 2 a.m. She's in her home country, and this is a concert that goes until 12 noon. Boy, you done lost your entire mind. If you must have thought 2 p.m. because that's when she was coming in. And I don't blame her. That is absolutely what makes sense. So while the ladies are getting ready for this Jam Nation show, Jock and Scrappy get to meet up. And this is where Jock is given the information that Kendra shared with Bambi about possibly not wanting to have children. This is where Jock gets his ammunition. And Jock is taken aback because he's meeting with Scrappy to discuss proposing to Kendra on this trip, which I still think was just a terrible idea, period. And I don't think her not wanting to have children because you got a baseball team already should be a deal breaker. As he said, his oldest is 19. Are you not tired? I'm tired for you. He takes this little nugget and, of course, waits until he's drunk and gets called on the carpet for throwing water on Pooh's booty at the Jam Nation to pull this little nugget out and surprise Kendra with it. And as I've said, she did the right thing. She walked away and was just like, these two things are not related. And Jock should be ashamed of himself. I'm ashamed because I've given you credit on the last episode for being the voice of reason when talking to Scrappy and about having sex with Bambi after having their baby and all these tips that you were sharing. I was like, oh my gosh, Jock is maturing. He's like the voice of reason. And then he does this and just disappoints me, point blank, period. And last but not least, let's talk T.I. and Tiny, friends and family hustle. And so a major theme in this episode is the mention of Nipsey Hussle's passing, because Reginae is having a difficult time with it, being that he was kind of a father to her half brother because Lil Wayne is her dad. Understandably so. Toya as a mom is struggling because her daughter is struggling. During this episode, Monica is also preparing to have her bunions removed, and she's really a champ. She is not moved by anything, okay? Even probably in her most worried moments, her game face, she is just stone cold. And I can really appreciate that about her. She handles this with ease. And even though Toya manages to come and visit her but make this all about her, Monica is resilient and she's able to put her, whatever she's encountering, to the side, whatever she's dealing with to the side to support Toya. But let's start from the beginning. This episode opens with the ladies meeting up for lunch to discuss what happened in New Orleans and just kind of to be friends, right? Hey girl, how are you doing? What's new? And this is where Toya divulges that Reginae is having a hard time with Nipsey Hussle's death. And Monica also talks about her divorce from Shannon Brown and how that's impacting her. In the next scene, LaToya finds out that Greenleaf may or may not be returning, or that her role may not be returning. But she's also been encouraged to get out there and audition for other roles, as well as get back in the studio. That's exciting because I don't think we've really heard from LaToya since the Regret song that she had with Ludacris, that she admits is one of her favorite songs. So we get to see her meet up with Tank this episode, actually get in the studio, maybe get some things cooking, right? Because the girl can sing. Right? She just needs the right team behind her. T.I. and Tiny prepare to take the family on vacation, and King has to fly out to meet them because he is once again on tour with members only. What makes this crazy is that during this vacation, King ends up telling on himself. He tells that he's having sex, that girls are coming back to the room, and that he's using protection. And I think Tiny immediately kind of regrets putting him out there like that. And so she immediately wants to have someone out there, an overseer, to make sure that he's okay. T.I. feels vindicated because this was the entire reason why he didn't want him on tour. He didn't feel as though he was ready. And maybe he was right. So I've been reading a few comments about this Hawaii vacation and when Tiny's trying to be romantic with T.I. And a lot of people are saying that he's just not very affectionate. He turns his head from her, and I don't know what to say about that. That could just genuinely be his nature. I won't go out on a limb and say that he's not attracted to her, that he doesn't love her, because if that was the case, then why wouldn't they just go ahead and get divorced? What's stopping them? She's filed for divorce, and he's the one that's constantly fighting with other men or trying to fight for his marriage in general, you know, or defend her honor. What would be his reason for staying with her if he's not attracted to her? And while I've pretty much already covered the majority of the episode, one thing that stuck out to me was where Toya and Reginae were talking about Lucci and the whole situation with her not feeling protected and feeling safe with him, and him tweeting about it. I'm actually not sure if they've broken up. I don't really follow her to that extent. But I think that Toya gives great advice, and it's just like, well, this is what I was warning you about. He doesn't know, I guess he doesn't know how to be a man, or you're not quite ready to be with someone in that capacity, you know. Not even defending Reginae, but she grew up in this life. And so what else is she supposed to be attracted to? She definitely can't just be out here dating your average Joe. Like, that's not gonna suffice. But I love to see the relationship that she and Toya have, because it is a friendship, but at the same time, Toya is a mother. And that wraps it up for this week's recap. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit like. And don't just hit like, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss anything. While you're at it, make sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so that you're always a part of the conversation. And I can't wait to see you next week. Bye-bye.
This video has been Quinny B approved. But don't stop there. Let's keep the conversation going. Head on over to Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.